Hi there, and hope you are doing quite well with the Bootstrap. Now, in this movie, we are going to focus on the buttons in the Bootstrap. Now, nothing is too much deep in the Bootstrap because everything is already being done, and that's the beauty why people use the Bootstrap on the first place. Now, let's scroll on this and notice I am in the file 10-file, which is going to be our tutorial file for this particular movie. As I scroll it down, you can see there are a couple of buttons and couple of styles. Now remember my words out here. Whenever we are going to deal up with the Bootstrap, there are a couple of styles which are always going to follow us. Like notice, there is a default style which is bit whitish, again bit gradient. You can see a darker at the bottom, and when I hover over it, it becomes a bit darker, so it's a gradient. And then we have got a default style, primary, success, info, warning, and danger. Now these are all styles which are going to always going to follow us, whether it's a button, division, background color, or maybe something alert boxes and all of that. Now first is the button style, and notice this style is pretty powerful. Whatever the text you are going to write inside a button tag, it is going to take the entire amount of that. And also these buttons are a bit more kind of intelligent. Let me show that. And notice these are now stacked one upon each other. And notice as I scroll it down, the buttons are intelligent as well. And notice I can stack them down and all the buttons are stacking. But since my text was not actually good, and primary is a bit more bigger than the I am an info, and that's why the stack was not properly. But there are a couple of other ways to do so, and we'll discuss them in the next movie. Now let me first show you that there is a link also at the end. Now this is not a link, this is also a button. Hey, where is that button? Now notice when I click on this link, notice there is a blue line out there, and this makes it an entire button. Also, if you want to observe closely, now notice as I hover to the link, I'm not on the link, and still my mouse has changed into a something hand feature out there. So we'll talk how we can design these all of the things. Now also, since we are talking about the buttons, in the HTML you can use any of the default button like the link buttons. Right now it's not pointing anywhere, it's just hashed, so it will point to the same page. And there are some simple buttons, input buttons and submit button. You can deal up with that. Now let's go back onto the backend and see how easily we can do, and then we'll come back onto the page and check out few more things about the buttons. So let me go out here, and this is where our buttons styling is getting started. So you can see there is a simple tag that says button, and type is the button. In this case there are a couple of other types which I have discussed at the bottom, like there is a submit button, there is a link button and all of that. So first we'll talk just about the buttons. Now I have called a particular class. Now this is btn. Now this is a subclass of the button that says btn-default, and this gives a nice whitish color to my button. Again, you can change these classes to default, primary, success, info, warning and danger. And what I'm expecting by now with you is that at least by so far you have got what are the colors of all of them. So let me repeat, try to repeat with me. The default is whitish, the primary is bluish, the success is greenish, the info is little bit bluish but less blue than the primary. Then we have got warning, which is bit orangish yellow I can say, and danger is bit reddish but not that sharp red, bit dull. So I hope you got it that. Now once I have got these buttons, notice there is a link also. So it's simply a class, just like a button-danger, it's button-link. Now I prefer not to use this particular link because it just don't look that much impressive. So I'd like to keep avoided, but yet I'm sharing it with you. Now let's talk about the other. Now there are a couple of things that you can do with the buttons as well. Now in this case, what I have done, I have created a link out here in this. This is a link button. And notice what we have got out here, and open up my browser, and you can see this is a link button. And notice the code out here. What I have done is it is actually an anchor tag, and inside that I have called a class that says button-info. So that makes it info, which is kind of a bluish, a bit lower bluish than the primary. And I can call this class inside these attributes like a, then there is a button, then there is input, input again. This is kind of a submit, and this is a button simply. So you can do pretty much all of these things with button. Now, when I talk about the button, I'll move to this first button just for the sake of demonstration. I'll put a space out here, and notice I'll move my cursor first of all here. Notice this button is of same size. Now, Bootstrap allows you to have multiple sizes on the buttons, and making any size of button is pretty simple. Bootstrap again gives you the 4 types of sizes. There is a larger, there is a MD for medium, there is SM for smaller, and there is a XS for the extra small devices. Now let's take a look at one by one. There is a BTN dash, and you simply have to say LG, MD, SM, or whatever you wish. So I'll save this, and notice now our button is a bit bigger as compared to the primary button. You can change it to, I'll show one more and I'll leave the rest for you. I'll choose, let's say, XS. Now the other 2 that are left for you is MD and SM. As I save it, you can notice the default button is a bit smaller now. So that's the one thing that we have learned. We can change the size. Now I'm a kind of a fan of big things, so I try to always make things a bit bigger because it's sharp and it's easily visible. But there is also one more class that makes bigger buttons, and with the bigger I mean entire block level buttons. And if you wish, you can also choose that as well. How to do that? You just have to write in place of XS, you have to call that class, and that class is simply block. I'll save this and I'll open up my browser, and notice that the default is now a bit bigger button, even biggest I can say on the screen, and it looks pretty nice to me. Now there are 2 more things that you can do with the button. You can make a button already clicked, or you can make it disabled. And that's a Boolean value that you can implement out here. And that's very simple to do as well. You just have to say a Boolean keyword that says active. And I'll save this, move my cursor over here so that we can see that. And when I do so, notice it is already clicked and look like already clicked. When I click over it, you can see nothing is happening. When I click on the warning, it is pressed, and when I release my mouse, it is back onto the state. But this is already clicked, so I can say this is an active button. You can make some buttons disabled as well, and in order to do so, you just have to remove the active and you have to call disabled. That's disabled. Let me save that, move my cursor out here, and when I open up, you can see this is default is not disabled. If I move my cursor on the Chrome, it gives a red sign that says no, you cannot click it. Now these signs are a bit different in the Chrome or in the Internet Explorer. Now buttons have a lot of things to do. Now if you might have noticed one thing about the buttons is, let me go into the code. I never said that buttons should be stacked onto a horizontal level. Now by default, if you are quite familiar with the HTML, this should have been going onto one on the top of other, but this is going like this. So I don't want my menu like this, although it looks good, but I want all of my buttons to be stacked. How I can do that? Now again, our talk about the buttons is not over yet. We can do quite a lot of things with the button. So in the next movie, we will talk again. We will take the same exercise file and we are going to talk more about the buttons.